Can you hear me? Oh, hang on.
Can you hear me?
Hang on. I'm figuring it out.
I can hear you, Mike. Kenny, can you hear me? Kenny, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, Mike.
Hey, Kenny, how are you? Can you hear me good?
Yes, good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Small meeting tonight.
Yeah, they'll be coming in.
You guys have a good Christmas?
Very
How
good.
about you?
Good, yeah. Enjoyable. Got to see my daughters. That was the best part.
Sure. I got an air fryer.
Oh, yeah, you'll like that.
I want to have tater tots with every meal all the time.
That's funny. You'll like it. You'll like it. French fries, any of that stuff was just like, just
Well,
great.
I've cooked 3 times with it already since Christmas, so I'm loving it.
I got my wife one about a year or so ago, and I use it more than she does.
Oh yeah, well I bought it for her, and I've been using it nonstop.
Guess a little bit early.
Well, not bad though.
No.
No, they'll be coming in. I gotta just get my emails up here. Okay. All right, so let's switch this one over here. Vernon, Karen, they're coming in. They're slowly getting in here, so.
How you doing, Mayor? Kenny?
Good, how are you?
Hey,
How
Vern,
you doing, Vernon?
How
Karen.
are you?
How you doing, Karen?
You got a different setting there. Are you still
Yeah.
out west?
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. You're 3 hours difference, right?
We're 2 right now. Arizona doesn't change.
Okay.
Yeah, Arizona follows their own rules.
Is it about 95 there already?
No, not yet. No, it's been in the low 60s.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
they gotta
pretty
be
much.
dying.
Past week.
I
but
I
it's
feel
nice.
for them. They gotta be dying.
Oh yeah, it's nice out.
You're just wearing your t-shirt, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello, Ty, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks. Everybody have a good Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, Barry's joining us. He's connecting.
Hello,
You there, Barry?
I am. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good, thank you.
Vernon, thank you for sending out or typing up the summary of last meeting.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. That's something I do for the Alderman page.
I
So
appreciate that.
yep.
We got a few that will not be joining us tonight due to some conflict. We're getting everybody. Daryl's, he's connecting. JR is connecting. JR looks like he has Darren with him.
Yep, we're here.
Okay. Daryl, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Mickey joined us yet? Yes.
Hello.
How you doing, Mickey?
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Same to you. You spend some time with Grandma?
Oh, you know it. She's kind of bummed out because of the whole COVID thing, but
Yeah.
she's got to do a couple video calls.
Did your grandmother ever leave the house though? Like, I feel like COVID shouldn't really change her too much.
Oh, Kevin, if only you knew. No, I don't know. She doesn't like wearing a mask. I can say that.
Yeah, I can't relate.
Listen. How's Kevin?
Kevin's good. Gonna start making some more venison soup here in a little bit when this meeting's over.
Venison soup.
Yeah, my buddies all throw like the rib cage and the neck bones and everything out, and I don't. So
That's good. You'd make a good survivalist.
yeah, getting into predator hunting this January. So
I don't know about that part, Mayor.
Yeah. You guys, Vernon and who we got here? Kevin, did you get your notice today on the meeting Monday?
yes,
Yes, I did, Mayor. I received it.
Okay. Are you gonna be back or are you gonna still be?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm leaving Saturday morning,
Oh, okay.
so I'll be back.
All right. Well, safe travels.
Thanks.
Okay, we got Della. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Sorry to be late.
I think you're just about on time.
All right. Hey.
Okay, actually I got 5:29 on the computer, but 5:31 on my watch. So we'll get going. We got a short session tonight, 45 minutes. So what I thought we would do is continue on with determining the role of the police. We got I don't know, I'm not going to say we got off track, but we got hung up on the school resource officer. We did a lot of talk about that. So I'd like to move forward tonight with determining the role of the police. And just to read you a couple of things here. First, some agree that the police should not be involved in responding to non-criminal conduct. Second, some propose curtailing police activities that pose a risk to overreaction to minor offenses. So I'd like to delve into some of the things that non-criminal conduct. And one thing you're going to have to keep in mind is that we can make suggestions that the police don't do that, but we also have to come up with a solution then who would be doing it. And we've got to keep focused that we are a small community. And sometimes our resources are not going to be as great as in larger communities. So you're going to find that that's why a lot of times police are called. And I think you heard at the last meeting on some of the functions that the police provide. So we've got to keep that in mind as we move forward. I know there was a suggestion to get county mental health involved, and with the couple of short weeks we had here, I have not reached out to them yet, but I will be reaching out to them so that we can get their perspective on things too. So let's move forward the determining the role of the police. And here's some of the different parts of the community may feel differently about police roles within the community. And it's important to take all perspectives into account. So we've got I know we've got a large group. Everybody here represents certain aspects. And I want to hear more from, or I'd like to hear more from everybody on your thoughts about what we want our police department doing. And if you have a suggestion on how that can be accomplished, that's great. If not, we can work on that also. Okay, so I don't want to take up much more time because we do have a short window tonight because I have to move into the inclusion and diversity meeting, which starts right after this meeting tonight. So who would like to kick it off?
I have a question first, if that might help us.
Yep, go ahead.
I would suspect that there's statistics and data somewhere that shows the percentage of non-criminal, non-violent type 911 calls versus violent or criminal 911 calls. So do we have an idea of how many would not require police?
Chief Raleigh's with us. Chief Richardson is actually he's off sick right now today. So Chief Raleigh, do you have any comments on that?
Well, it's very difficult to determine the need for a police officer until you actually get there.
Right.
Quite often, we get called to a scene and we may be told it's a larceny, and then we get there and it's a domestic. Or we get called to something, it's a property dispute, and we get there and it's a stabbing. So we respond to if somebody calls the Olean Police Department, we respond. And then we determine when we get there what the appropriate response is. If we get there and determine, well, this is really a fire call, then we call the firemen. Or this is more an issue for the Department of Aging, then we would call in and say, call over to the county, if it's during business hours, and contact somebody from that. Or this is a mental health call. But you don't know until you get there what you're dealing with. But if someone calls us, we respond.
Somebody had mentioned the last meeting about the 311 number for citizens who knew that it was non-emergent. Is that even something that's even viable in our area?
Well, I mean, we have a couple of numbers that ring into the station. I'm not familiar with the 311 number. And just so everyone knows, like if you dial 911, and I can't remember if this was talked about in the last meeting, that actually rings in to the sheriff's office dispatch center.
Yeah.
They then determine if it's an emergency or a non-emergency. And if it is an emergency, they then have a system where they can transfer the call to us, like a one-button transfer, and then we get it. They stay on the line. We gather the pertinent information, and we dispatch our officers here in the city. If it's a non-emergency, depending on what it is, they will either answer the person's question if they just need some help with some information, or they'll give them our direct line and they can call us, and then our dispatchers will do whatever they can to help the caller with whatever they need.
Thanks.
Kim, thanks for joining us. Can you hear us? Okay. And Dr. Watkins, can you hear us?
I can. How are you, Mayor?
Good. How are you? Thanks for joining us. So we're continuing with our discussion on determining the roles of the police in our community. So I think Jeff explained how the okay, I'll get you in a second, JR. Jeff explained how 911 works here. And does anybody have any questions on how the 911 actually works? How it goes into the county transfers it to us. So
I guess I have one question.
Hang on, Mickey. JR, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I guess my question, Bill, and it's not to that point, but you talked about continuing the conversation about what the role of the police is, but in sake of time, and that this is specific to our community, I mean, isn't the better question here, this group is, what is the Olean PD, in our opinion, doing wrong? And if so, what do we want them to do differently? I mean, if we go line by line and what do we want them to do? I mean, the conversations are going to digress and spiral when just zero it into here and say, what are they doing wrong and what do we want them to do differently?
That's,
Yep. And
what's everybody think? Rather do that than trying to,
Sure, if somebody thinks we're doing something wrong, absolutely, let's talk about it. Let's see if it is indeed a problem and what we can do to fix it if it's a problem. Absolutely, that's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for.
okay.
And with that said, Bill, like, you know, we talked about last week about like the social worker and that, but you know, I mean, what is your budget? What is your budget on training, continued training for the police department annually?
Chief can answer that.
My training budget is $7,500 for the police department.
Which goes across the entire department.
That's for the entire year for the whole department for the training that we do.
So, I mean, wouldn't it be better to try to get a resolution through the council to increase that in the next budget? So that way, like we talked about social work and we talked about mental health, substance abuse, where instead of hiring a social worker, a mental health worker who you're going to have available 24/7 at the employee cost, to increase the training budget to give them accredited training to handle different situations and increase the training for them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a resolution because we're going to start the budget process.
I changed it and I said budget. I'm sorry, Bill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm saying? Like increase the training that they have. So you got somebody with more advanced training on the police department who's already on your books in domestic violence training, mental health awareness, or something along those lines.
That could be part of our plan. Yes. Mickey, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, two things. The first one is about the 911 calls. Chief, maybe you know as well, Mayor. How long has the county taken over the caller service? How many years?
Oh, that's probably been 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We used to do our own, and at some point they took it over, and they're the main call center for the county now.
And has that helped facilitated better working together with all the different services from the county level?
I don't know that it really had an impact on that regard. I mean, the system that we have in place works well. Our dispatchers work well together. They know each other and they have worked together a long time, and it works well, but it hasn't really made any impact on other departments or other areas.
I was just curious because when I had spoke to you sometime before, Chief, you mentioned that with a lot of the changes that you may need some secretarial help. And I was just wondering, like, how long have we been not dealing with the 911 system? But 20 years is hard to imagine a time when we did use it.
Technically, we are still dealing with it because even though they answer the 911 call, they still transfer it then to us, and our dispatchers know how many officers we have working, where those officers are, who's available, and they will determine which officers get sent to what calls, how many officers. So they're technically still handling the 911 call. They're just not initially answering the phone.
Mm-hmm. And secondly, I just wanted to say the brainstorming about, you know, what we want the police to look like for our community is good to inspire deeper thoughts about, you know, what functions should they serve, as well as how we want them to perform, behave, maybe take away some tasks, add on some tasks, things like that. So I'd like to inspire that thinking process. And I'd also like to thank Chief Rowley for using technology to help bring the force to modern times and keep up with trainings and things like that. And anything that can help you guys in the technology sphere, I think, is a worthwhile investment.
Okay, going with JR's thoughts here on getting into what do we think is wrong, or not wrong, but how can we make the department better, I guess is what we would be looking at. Ty?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. It sounded to me like more people think the committee is about what the police do wrong. And I don't, like, if you read the book, it's police reform and reinvention,
Mhm.
not what the police do wrong. Me personally, I could not, for my community, I could not say, let's skip over things and rush through it. There's no way that I could agree with that. Secondly, I personally don't feel that our police are doing wrong. It's more of reinventing, seeing what we can make, how we can make our police better and for the future and for our community.
And for the relationship between community and police, because there's a, it's on shaky ground right now, even in Olean.
I don't know if that's absolutely true. Vernon, go ahead, Vernon.
Actually, I was going to jump on what Mickey said and what Ty said, and also what JR mentioned. First, with JR's, with as far as getting the training for, and bring in some type of funding for training so that we can either use that for a police officer trained type counselor, or whether we bring on board counselor for that. I think that's a great idea. And, if that's something that we would have to go through the council or, work on next year's budget with, I'm fine with that. And as far as the community, I know last week I have to jump to my notes here because I don't have them printed. Last week I had some notes written about the functions and the role of the police. And this kind of hits on with, a lot of people always say that they don't see any issues with Olean Police Department. And in all honesty, a lot of it is based on their experience. Me personally, when I moved here in '93, I had a lot of experiences with police department. And without going through names or anything, there's a lot of police officers that are still here within the department. And mostly for both sides, we need to work on, look at a trust between the police officers and the communities. We need to look at the history that the police department has as far as how the community, our community, is perceived and how the minority community perceives the police department. If we don't recognize that history there, then we're going to fail to be able to implement anything here. There is a deep-rooted history between the police department and minorities, and that can't be ignored. Next, the community involvement, I think on both sides. I think the community needs to respect the police as much as we, want the respect of the police department. It needs to go the other way as well. We need to respect the police officer, the types of demands that they have, the things that they have to do, all of the pressure that they have to be able to perform. And, and overall respect, we have to have some respect. But those are just my thoughts on that.
Those are good thoughts.
Right.
Who else?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Della.
All right, I have one thing about the training. And I do agree that would be wonderful to get the extra training, especially when dealing with someone who is not thinking rationally, like that. But social workers and psychiatrists, they have years and years of training. Will we have, after that training, will we have the people, a connection with the people to back us up when we do come into a contact with something that is maybe beyond us? Or will we know when it is beyond us, a situation, we will still have the backup of the social services, et cetera. Yes, I hope.
Yeah, let me, if I could address the whole issue of the social worker. And I know that this has been something that's been discussed around the country, and I see it on the news. And there's problems associated with that. First of all, if you were going to do that, you'd have to have a social worker on 24/7, 7 days a week. Because if you tell the public that you're going to do that, the social worker is going to get sick. They're going to take vacation. So you can't hire one. You got to have a system in place where there'll always be one. Then, as I stated earlier, if I go on a call of a barking dog, within a matter of seconds, I could be fighting with somebody with a knife. And the social worker is not there because they're in the station drinking coffee. So, it's the idea of it, having social workers respond to these things is great under a very specific set of conditions. If you know what the situation is before you get there, and then you can have the social worker go with the officer, but that's rarely going to be the case. Usually when things go bad, they go bad unexpectedly on a call that you were not expecting any problem on, and the social worker is not there. So to hire a social worker and have them available, I just don't see that as a good use of funds. The county has social workers, they're very great people, and we work with them during the day shift when they're there, talking about different patients. So they'll send us, orders to pick people up who need some medical or mental treatment. And so we have a relationship with those folks. But to have somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning and God forbid, New Year's Eve, it's coming up, available all the time, that's tricky. That's a long road to home.
No, I wasn't talking about having someone like Zelly and I. I'm talking about when you get there and you realize that as you have been doing all these years, and you realize that this is a situation for even though you had the training, that's the extra training, or say the novice cop has the extra training, they will still call. They still had the people to back them up, like they have now. Am I making sense? Like,
you're
I'll
talking
get
about
extra training
Captain
for my
Mike,
job.
is that?
I will get
Sure.
extra training for my job, but still, if I need help, I'm gonna be able to call, right?
Oh, sure. Della,
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
That's
Della, I mean, no matter how much training we get, we're
Right.
not going to be counselors. We're not going to be psychologists, not going to be psychiatrists. We can get training to help us do that job better with our initial contact with them. But if it gets beyond something that we can handle or should be handling, sure, we're still going to have the same resources that we can contact that we do now. Does that answer it?
Yes, that's good. Yes, thank you so much.
Kim Rossi wants to make a comment. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. Well, all I wanted to say was I worked as a social worker for years and years before I went into ordained ministry, and I worked for a county mental health department, and I worked in a position where I went out with police officers after hours if there were issues with regards to child abuse or child neglect. One of the things I want to say is, looking at this from both sides, is social workers don't want to be trained as police. If you're taking social workers out into a situation with you, you're taking people out into a situation where they have no training. They do not have the training a police officer has. And social workers, most often, we don't want to be police officers, or we would have become police officers instead of being social workers. So in that respect, you have to be really conscientious about where you're putting a dangerous situation in place by putting some people who are not capable or do not have the skills required to go out and investigate and go out in a police situation. Very often when I went out with police officers, I called them and asked them for help because I wasn't sure the situations I was going into to do child abuse investigations was safe when it was late at night or after hours. But I was never trained to be a police officer or to do the things police officers were doing. Most of the time, what was most helpful was, as a social worker, working with the police department in consultation. We would talk about situations, we would talk about things, and there was a relationship in which there was education on both sides. But this whole idea of having a social worker on staff to go out with police officers, the poor police officer is going to have to watch out for the social worker as well as watching out for themselves and the situation they're into. There has to be a real clear definition of what you hope a social worker to do and how that social worker is supposed to help you. And I see that in being a collaborative or in a consultation or even in a training situation. But I don't know, Chief Rowley, you may have different ideas about it, but I just think you take some social worker out with you. They have no clue how to go forward and doing proper police duties when you're going out into dangerous situations, and you end up looking out for the social worker as well as the situation. I just don't see that as being a really good use of I'm not sure that that's the best way for this to be helpful. I think there are probably other ways to do that. So I think that gets into what we're looking to do as a group, which is to look at being reinventing or reimagining ways in which the police can be better equipped to do their jobs, where education and training and consultation and work within the community, establishing relationships in which allows the people in the community to have a different view of the police department, and having the police department to hear people in the community. So I think that there's an ability to reinvent or reimagine ways in establishing relationships between the community and the police, so that that relationship is improved and it helps both sides. And people with specialties like, people who are trained in dealing with substance abuse treatment, and people who are trained in mental health, and people who are trained in child abuse, that those types of things, we work together with police officers to try and help better understand things in a holistic approach, rather than just hiring a social worker who may not have the skills to really do the best job for the police department. So see, you let me talk, Mayor, and now I won't stop. So I'm going to shut up and let somebody else talk.
Okay, we got Darren. I think Darren, you're back. Did you want, and then Vern, I think you had your hand up too. So Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in real quick and say I partially agree with Kim, and I'd like to piggyback off of that, because she is correct in, saying that it doesn't make sense to put a social worker in those situations, because then it's an extra thing that an officer has to account for and make sure that that social worker is protected in a possibly hostile situation. And then if you're going to hire social workers, then you're talking about an even higher increased budget, because then these social workers should have some type of actual training to be able to deal with situations like that if something goes sideways inside someone's home. Like if you have a domestic and you show up on site and that social worker's there with you, and then it ends up going sideways and somebody pulls a gun, now you have this officer having to account for them plus any other people in the home outside of like trying to figure out how to do their job and subdue that person. I think it definitely makes more sense to further train officers in different respects, as JR said earlier, because there's a lot of other trainings that some officers could use anyways. So it makes more sense to increase that budget, because then you can knock out two birdies with one stone and provide further training for the officers that they need either way, and then have a group of officers that are trained in different subsets. And then to address the whole, how do we get the trust back with the community, like what's being suggested, like it's being talked about, but we're not actually suggesting anything. So it's like, I wonder what are we suggesting? Community policing and developing the relationship with the community is definitely a good start, but within that, how do we actually physically grasp the community? And I think something that I've seen is, and I'm not saying it's all, because I have a good relationship with a lot of the guys and I know them and whatnot, but I've come across some of them that, it almost seems like they're not enthused, but I also get that too, because the job is stressful and it's very hard. But at the same time, that's something that I think the public wants to see, is that you enjoy interactions with people. And if you're going to tell somebody that I enjoy interacting with the public and community policing, I need to actually physically see it, because words don't mean anything to me.
Good points. Vernon?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on Kim and Darren there. They raised some valid points about the counselor. So then that goes back to what JR had stressed at the beginning with going with some type of training. But I do have a question for the captain and the chief. I did find out some information about therapeutic crisis intervention. It's something that's used instead of use of force, if I'm not mistaken. Is that some type of training that we have implemented with OPD, or is that something that we would look forward to trying to get for training, additional training for our officers here?
I'm not familiar with that training, but the state has mandated, I think about a year ago, and we've done versions of this throughout my career. They've stressed de-escalation training. Now, I mean, that's, none of us want to go out there and immediately go to the police baton. God forbid, police go to the gun. No, we want to resolve the situation as easily as possible with as little physical contact as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes that just doesn't work. You know, that's so now it just started this past year. I put on a de-escalation training, and we're going to be doing that every single year, and we're going to be adding on to it. Now, the type of training that you mentioned, I'm not familiar with that, but I'd be more than happy if you want to send me an email with that information, and or if you want to come talk to me about it, Vernon, that's fine. I'd be more than happy to look into that and try to, if I can, incorporate that into our annual training.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Typically with trainings, we have to be very selective on the lesson plan and the content of the training. And the Division of Criminal Justice Services, which oversees police departments in the state of New York, they usually recommend certain trainings, or they will sponsor certain trainings, and they have vetted the content of that training so that they know the officer's receiving sound training that's defensible in court should it be attacked later. There's probably many, many trainings out there that we've never heard of that are available, but they may or may not be trainings that we should be or can be legally training our officers to use. So anything that comes up, we're more than happy to look at it, and we'd have to review it. I'd want to send it to DCJS for them to look at it. We have the city attorney look at it. And I know this seems like a lot, but it's maybe silly to some people, but if you have a training program, you teach an officer a certain way, and then something goes wrong, that's what gets scrutinized. That's what's going to get you into trouble. So we have to be very careful about what programs we administer and what training we give.
I think you're in luck, Chief, because it's already implemented in New York. So
Well, that's fine.
There's a process, and I mean, I'll go back to when I was on the police department, that we talked a lot about doing an accreditation. And there's a process in New York State that a police department can become accredited. And I'm not sure if Chief, you have any comments on that, or Mike, but it's a lengthy process, because this is something that we've actually been setting the stage for with this program, with our policies and that, redoing policies, updating policies. But this is where you would put everything together, and you would actually be scrutinized by the Division of Criminal Justice Services. They would send in evaluators. They'd come in, they'd look at your whole plan. And I believe there's still in there that under this, your officers would have to have, I know at the time it was 20 hours of in-service training every year to do with certain things. So it's not real, it's not a real costly process to implement it, but it would increase your training budget, and it also is something where your insurance carrier would. I mean, they always said the insurance carrier would take a look at that and give you a better rate, because your agency is accredited and your officers are receiving different, training. Our police department does a lot with that $7,500, and they do get a lot of training. A lot of training that's available is free, other than travel to and from it. So they do a good job there. But Chief or Mike, do you have any comments on the accreditation?
Yeah, let me, the accreditation process is something that's been kicked around. It's been around for a long, long time. It used to be that if a department became accredited, they were eligible for more grant funding. And over the years, that's gone away. So there's not really a financial gain for a police department to be accredited. It is a feather in your cap. It does mean that you've checked all the boxes, you've crossed all the Ts, dotted all the Is, and it's a good thing to do. I will chime off what the mayor said about the cost of it. Accreditation process is a lengthy process. It takes a lot of work. I know the sheriff's department here in Cat County, they had an employee full-time that's all this person did. And it's a huge undertaking. Any policies that we've changed or updated, I've tried to update them in accordance with the accreditation standard so that at some time in the future, should we decide, to head in that direction, all these ones that we've already done are already meet the threshold. So there's no use reinventing the wheel with those particular policies. It not only does it, the man hours and the time it takes to do it is really what the main problem is. Subsequently, the ongoing, continuing recertification of all the things that's necessary and the costs involved. I'm all in favor of accreditation. It's going to cost some money to do it.
Okay, Mickey, you had your hand up?
Sure. So one of the things I had read when going through the paperwork was that the OPD has crossing guard duties. I think it was just one officer. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
There's 2 part-time civilian crossing guards.
Okay. And as part-timers, does it ever conflict to where if they're not available, you have to send one of your uniformed officers?
Yes.
Okay. Is that something that police have always done? When looking through the different departments of the city, the Department of Public Works seems like a more apt description for this, but I understand that the police can do
Well,
that better
we've
than
done that for years. We used to have, and Bill can tell you better than I can, over 20 crossings we would have every day back when we had a lot of schools. Now it's down to just 2 crossing guards. People in the DPW are not necessarily trained in traffic control. And, that's an area that we receive training in, and we're more apt to be, there quickly. So we have these 2 crossing guards. If one of them calls in sick or they're not available, because the parents of the children that use those crossings know that there'll be a guard, we must man that crossing, and we go there if the crossing guard doesn't show up for some reason, and we take care of it. We don't call people in an overtime for it or anything like that. And it's a process that's worked here in Olean for longer than I've been here, probably longer than Bill's been here. We've been doing it forever.
At one time, we used to have 28 crossing guards in the city of Olean.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And through time, it's been dwindled down. But you got to remember, at one time, we had 11 elementary schools here also. So you had guards at pretty much many crossings throughout. So it's a program. It's an established program, and it's an established. Both of these crossings are established, and they have to be covered.
So it's not so much of a burden to the other officers is the point I was trying to get at.
No.
Another part to that is the department, the working with social workers. Isn't that already being done at some levels? I can think of a few community agencies like Community Action, the Department of Social Services, and whatever county services are available. Isn't that already being done?
We interact with the majority of the county departments on a regular basis. As I stated before, when we go on calls, people need a variety of services, most of which we can't offer. So we'll liaison with the county and get these folks whatever help they need, or, try to get the county to go visit these people. We'll call the county and say, hey, there's an elderly woman living here. We don't think she has any food or her heat's off. And the county will then, open up a case, they'll send somebody. So we work with all the county agencies all the time.
So the relationship is there to build upon if ever needed. Another thing I wanted to hit on was the accreditation standards. Well, firstly, do we have a use of force continuum for OPD? Is that in the union contract somewhere? I
But you
couldn't
have a
find.
use of force policy in your policies that I sent you.
Okay. All right. The accreditation standards, does that help bring new prospects for current officers, or new hires, an increase of wages, maybe local training hosting? Does that help any of those?
The only way it would help in recruitment would be that you know that the department that you're looking at is a certified, quality department, because you've met all those standards. Um, and everybody there is qualified in accordance with the requirements of the state of New York. I mean, we do the best we can to meet those standards, and we meet a lot of them that aren't necessarily, we don't have a policy for. But moving forward, if this committee decides that's what they want to do, like I said, certainly a good idea, as long as everybody's on board with, it's not something that's going to be done in a month, and it's going to cost some money, and we may have to either hire an outside person to assist us, or figure out a way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, hang on a second, Kenny, we'll get you next. Karen had her hand up. Go ahead, Karen.
My question, I think, is for Chief Rowley. I thought in the beginning of these conversations, did you say that we have a posting for a position at OPD? I haven't seen anything.
We had an open position, which we are hopefully hiring a young man in January.
And could you, when you get a minute, maybe send it through the mayor's office and just email us all out what the job description looked like, and maybe what education and things that you're looking for in that?
Well,
Maybe it'll give us an idea of.
This has come up a couple of times, and I'll try to be real quick because I know Mr. Wright wants to speak. Just so everybody knows, when it comes to hiring, and I know there's been a lot of bad information out there, so we can't just go out and recruit somebody. It's not, I think the firemen have a lot more leeway than we do. So in order for somebody to come work here, they have to, in order to go to the police academy, which they have to be an academy graduate for me to be able to hire them, they have to have 42 college credits to go to the academy at all. Then they go to the police academy, either the one in Jamestown or wherever you want to go. If you go to JCC in Jamestown, it's 2 semesters. It's probably close to $9,000. You graduate the academy, and then you have to take the civil service test. And if you pass, you still have to be in the top 3 candidates of that in order for me to hire you. So there's a lot of things you have to do for me to hire you. I can't go to the high school and recruit a young man or woman. I can't, it's not like I can just advertise. There's all these rules I have to follow, civil service rules and established procedures. So we don't advertise. Now then, we can take lateral transfers. That's one other thing that we can do. We have done that in the past. But typically we would go off the civil service list unless there's nobody available or there's not a qualified candidate. And then we have got stolen people, if you will, from other departments.
Yeah, I'd gone to the city website to see if there was a posting and tried to even civil service to go, well, how do we get there? As an educator, there's certain places you look for postings.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering where you were searching. And then again, are we throwing a wide enough net?
So typically what we do when we have an opening is we contact civil service. We ask them to send us their list of eligible people that I could hire. Also, then we send out the feelers to all the outside agencies within a reasonable distance of here and let them know if they have any officers that are interested in the lateral transfer, we have an opening and we'd be willing to talk to them.
Okay.
I'll send out the police officer job description that Cat County Civil Service has. I'll get it. I've got it. I tried to get it quickly here. It's going to take me a bit to find it, but I'll get that and send that out to everybody. So
we are going to have some more openings, so that'll be coming up.
Kenny, I think you're.
Alfred State just started a new police academy.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, are you still?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, I just wanted to know if you could get back to us with the approximate cost it would be for the accreditation, maybe at the next meeting, so we can maybe roll that into the training budget. If we maybe try to get some more money for training.
What I could do is contact the sheriff and ask him if he could ballpark it for me. Like I said, he had a full-time employee that worked on this for a long period of time and then continued to do so. So I could probably give you a rough number, but it'd be difficult to pin that down. And there again, it's the manpower issue. Having somebody work on that and fulfill all those requirements is a lot of work. And so that would be the biggest cost, would be having somebody do that, whether you hired a civilian to come in and do it for you, because I know the person that did it for the county has retired, you know, and, or, you know, figuring out how we were going to do it. But I'll look into that and try to get you an answer.
Now, how many years do you accreditate? Like at the Bureau, we accredited we did our accreditation every 2 years. And I know it's a pain to go through an accreditation. I understand that.
It's
Is it yearly or is it, how often do you do it?
It's a continual accreditation as long as you meet all of the, every year you have to meet these milestones.
Well, I think there's like inspection of your policies and your procedures every couple of years. I'm not sure exactly if it's 2, 3 or whatever, but they'll come in and inspect everything, look at your training logs, your training records, your policies, and there's a periodic inspection to that, to your point.
Yeah.
I
Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm sorry. Daryl had his, I missed his, and then we'll do Daryl, then Darren.
My apologies, I lost the feed due to a technical issue, but I do still see value in adding a social worker, even if it's in an on-call position. I know that's an investment, but I think if you want to make great improvement, you have to invest in law enforcement to do that. And, you know, I don't want to reiterate everything I mentioned last time, but I know at the public defender's office, the social worker helps fill gaps in our ability to meet the need. And I'm not saying a social worker goes to every call, but we heard from law enforcement last week of instances where they came and a person's furnace wasn't working and they've run into issues dealing with the elderly who are in need of assistance, and having an on-call person available to meet that need or bolster law enforcement in dealing with a difficult situation, I think is a worthwhile investment. So I still would encourage that as an idea. You know, obviously you can't allow perfection to be the enemy of the good. If there's a period of time where the social worker is not available, you know, that's a logistics issue. But I do think it's something that still should be looked at very seriously, because I know it created a great benefit to our office, and I could see it being a great benefit to the Olean Police Department.
Daryl, can I ask, does your office pay for a social worker, or is it the county?
It's actually the state. The governor, in trying to enhance the quality of our representation, gave us grant funding. So it comes from the state. So the governor, you know, invested in that, and it's allowed us to meet the needs of our clients better in terms of finding them housing and getting them into counseling and dealing with emergency circumstances that we were, as lawyers, ill-equipped to handle. And I could see the same thing being a benefit to law enforcement. They shouldn't have their resources monopolized in a way that's not effective for their, you know, doing law enforcement duties. And at the same time, they can have somebody completely equipped to deal with those issues when they deem appropriate. Additionally, training, I totally support increasing training, but all of this requires an investment. And if the governor apparently is serious about these police reforms, then it's going to cost a price. And so he should invest in it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Darren, and then we're at 6:50 now. We'll get with Darren and then wrap this up. So, Darren.
Perfect. So yeah, I just wanted to see what have we definitively defined as the issues and things that we want to lay some concrete on and actually start moving forward with. I know we talked about like possibly community relations and whatnot and trust. I think that's a good place to, you know, start around, but we haven't really, like, I guess, hooked the wheels up and started to move forward. I don't see, like, we keep circling back around to social workers and things like that. And that's, you know, that's good and everything, but I think everything that we've said and everybody's heard is we got two sides to it. Yes, social workers and no social workers, but if we go off of the facts and whatnot, it's probably not the most efficient thing in time and money to employ social workers full time. If we could figure out, like Daryl said, to have somebody on call, but then again, I see an issue with that because then you're gonna have to pay them more because nobody's gonna want a position at a minimal pay for it to be on call for situations like that. So you're gonna have to have somebody who has a lot of experience in social work and a lot of education and background, and then they're gonna need more money. So there's a lot of like catches with that.
Yeah, I think we're starting to, I mean, the conversation's been good. I see potential for shared services here with, possibly with the county for social workers. That may be an avenue to help with the budget. Rather than having, the police department hire social workers that are going to be there, around the clock. So we got some things. I think the idea of social workers is good. I think the idea of accreditation, which would help with the training, is good. I think the idea of moving all of that and start to, I think you used the term, the wheel and filling in the spokes. Is that, so we start to put the spokes together and put the package together that'll have a plan that we can take to the council. And then once they approve it, send off to the state. We've had a good, I think this has been good conversation tonight. Yeah, we seem to circle back and forth, but there again, you're going to get that with a large committee. But I think we got a lot of I see people shaking their heads, and I think there's probably a lot more comments here that the next meeting we'll be able to get everybody involved and give out their comments. Everybody has good comments. I think some of the information, I'll get you the requested information tonight was the police officer's job description. I will contact the county to mental health and see if they can provide us with a representative to sit on here. And also CARES. Drug counseling has been mentioned, not only drug counseling, but it takes in a lot of different counseling. So we've got some things to do here. So I apologize. I do have another meeting. I'm going to have to jump off here and get that set up. But thanks, everybody. Have a great new year. Let's look forward to 2021 being a better year for everybody. So thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So. Oh, before I leave, the next meeting is next Thursday. I'll send out that reminder. I'll send it out. We're doing every Thursday. So, okay?
Got it.
Okay. Oh, never mind. Have a good day.